Hello, everybody. Happy Sunday. Welcome to the Student Physical Therapist Network group and Facebook. Actually, this is another episode 11 of the PT Student Center. My name is Sarah Falbo, and it's so good to see you all. Thanks for coming in here. I see you, Chanel and Kevin and Matt. Thanks for coming in, guys. Happy Sunday. This is November 6th of 2022 for those of you listening in the future. And today we have another Q&A because there have been a lot of questions lately. I've been getting through Instagram. You guys have been sending to me in the Facebook DMs, and I want to address some of these today because I've been seeing some repeated questions. And I really want to touch on this all in one place. So if you do have any questions that are not touched on right now, let me know, because you can comment below and I will be sure to touch on your questions live. If you're in the Student Physical Therapist Network group on Facebook, come on in. You can watch the episode in here. So first question that I have is, what was your favorite part of PT school and why? And I want to know the answer from you guys too. Please put it down below. For me, I will say I had two favorite parts that kind of go hand in hand. For PT school, I will say I was the student who, first of all, did not go straight from undergrad to grad school. I had like a year and a half off in between, not by choice, but I am glad looking back that I did have that time off. And so I wouldn't say I was necessarily a traditional student who, like went straight through and did really good in class and all that stuff. I really struggled on exams and I did great on practicals. So I was really looking forward to clinical rotations and actually traveling for those too. I was trying to do international rotations and look into that and look into different opportunities. And unfortunately, when I was in PT school, the pandemic hit in the end of my second year. And so there was definitely no international rotations available at that time. So I was blessed and able to travel a little bit for my rotations. I'll first kind of explain how mine was set up. I know everybody has a slightly different setup of rotations, right? So my program, we had a 2-week rotation that was full-time in the clinic after our first year. So it was the summer. We started in August for PT school, and then it was the next July where we had our first rotation. So I was out in North Carolina for 2 weeks, and it was a lot of fun just to get out there. And then I had some 2 weeks off between rotations, my first rotation and going back to class. So I actually went to the beach for a week in North Carolina. And then I went over to Glacier National Park with my family, went to Montana. That was a lot of fun. And then went back to class. And so the fact that in PT school, you can travel and have these experiences and have clinicals in different places. And honestly, the clinical experience itself, regardless of the traveling portion, was my favorite as well, because I really enjoyed seeing patients directly and then seeing their progress over time was really, really fulfilling. It was cool to know, yeah, you make a difference in this person's life directly, even if you don't know that much. Even if you feel like, oh, I'm only in my first year and I don't really have that much knowledge or experience. But the fact of the matter is you can help people in a really cool way, even if you're not like a real PT yet, right? So that was really, really cool. And then my second rotation was in the middle of nowhere in New York, and it was winter and it was 5 weeks and it was January to February-ish. And it was an outpatient, private practice. It was high volume and they were attached to a gym. So it was cool to see that they were heavy on modalities. It was cool to just do the different modalities, not necessarily what I wanted to do or was going to do as a PT. But again, it was just cool to get that experience to see that patients, a variety of patients, first of all, and that they can still improve in different ways, right? So that was cool to see. And then going to conferences, man, conferences were some of my favorite parts of PT school. I know it's not necessarily a part of PT school, quote unquote, for everybody, because It's not required. It is a bit of a challenge sometimes to go, especially if your program does not necessarily have it set up so that week might be a little bit lighter in terms of exams and stuff for you. So if you do go, you may need to ask ahead of time, see if you can move an exam, if your program allows that, if you can take it remotely, whatever it may be. So conferences, I know it's not necessarily something for everybody, but for me, it was so cool to do. My program didn't necessarily advertise it in first year, and I think that's how it is for a lot of programs. So in my first year, I went to the National Student Conclave, which was so much fun. It was in Rhode Island. And then CSM was in DC, so the combined sections meeting. And that was in my second semester. And that's actually where Gabby and I had met. So the old co-host here, her and I had met at CSM in person finally. So that one was really cool to go to. And so I would love to hear your guys' experience too. Have you been to a conference? Do you think it's worth it? I've heard mixed reviews, but I will say for myself, totally worth it, simply from the connections that I have made there in terms of like networking with PTs and people who are ahead of you, who you can then connect with and see, oh, like what they're doing, I actually kind of want to do. And so that was super, super valuable, simply just from that part of it, simply the connections. Not even talking about all the information that you might learn and stuff like that, but it was a lot of fun. And for me in PT school as well, I did triathlons. So being able to like stay active and go and travel for my first half Ironman and do it with a classmate was so cool. And I really, really enjoyed that. For me, I don't know about you guys, but monotony is like my arch nemesis. And part of the appeal for me for PT, like for physical therapy, was that it is kind of vague in the sense that you can do a variety of things. I thought, man, I'm going to go into this. I love helping people, very cliche, and I'm never going to be bored. That was really one of the key factors for me. You can work your entire career in so many different settings, helping so many different people, pathologies, etc. And that's why it was really appealing for me. And so I think my favorite part of PT school, long story short, are the clinicals and the traveling, because it really took away from the monotony of going to class, taking exams, working out, going home, sleeping, waking up, repeating that whole thing day in and day out. Can get really exhausting. So for me, like traveling helped me stay sane. The physical activity helped me stay sane, and connecting to new people at conferences and also at, different like small events helped me stay sane a lot. So that is what my favorite part of PT school was. And somebody had asked, okay, so what is CSM? That is the combined sections meeting for you guys. If you don't know, it's run by the APTA, which is the American Physical Therapy Association, once a year. And all the PTs, PTAs, PT students, PTA students cross country can come to this event. And last time I went was 2019 in Denver, and there were, I believe, like 16,000 people there. And this was right before the pandemic. So I'm not sure how it is now, but the next one is in San Diego, February 23rd to 25th, 2023. And I'm excited. I'm actually going to go. I've decided. So I'm pumped to be back in the game of conferences. It's not just for students, but this is where you can connect to a lot of different PTs and stuff like that. So that is what CSM is. Somebody asked, why do you not treat patients clinically? Okay. This is a tough question. For those of you who don't know, hi, I'm Dr. Sarah Falbo, and I do not treat patients clinically. For me, this was a decision I made kind of like shortly after graduation, actually. Probably a month or two after, before I had passed my boards. And for me, part of it was like compassion fatigue. I was in an inpatient hospital during one of my long-term rotations during the height of COVID in Florida and pre-vaccine. And there was just like a lot going on. I was on the stroke unit. It just felt very heavy for me. And that's actually when I started getting therapy for myself, was during that rotation. I would sit in my car. I use BetterHelp. I don't know if you guys use this at all, but I would go on my phone, plug it into my car, sit in the parking lot, and have my therapy session like the hour before I would go into work. So I'd be in the work parking lot for like an hour. I got there at like 6:30, 6 a.m. sometimes. I would sit there, chat with my therapist on my phone, and then go into work and treat patients all day. So it was a lot. And I love treating. I think this is the misconception people have. They're like, oh, if you don't treat clinically as a PT, you're not a PT, first of all. Oh, and you can't, like, you just don't help people the same way. And I would like to counter that with, I enjoy helping people help people, right? So by me doing this helps all of you guys who are pursuing PT and want to go treat clinically, you are able to go and do that. If I can get you through PT school and thrive through it and get through it without any debt and get through it with less stress, that's a big win for me. And I get a lot of fulfillment from that, and knowing the impact really for me is the difference. And when I really sat down during the pandemic, it had me thinking, and a lot of you thinking, I'm sure, like, what do I really want in my life, not just in my career? And I was trying to design out my life, like, what do I want in a year? Like, how many weeks do I want to go and just like be in the mountains or on the beach or whatever it might be? And when I was designing out what I wanted 2021 to look like, or 2022 really was this is my first full year as a licensed physical therapist. I wanted to have the flexibility to work remotely. And so for me, treating patients was just not the way that I wanted to do it. Although, of course, there's telehealth and all that stuff. It just wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do. And I love the field of PT, and I still love helping patients get PT first, avoid pain meds that are unnecessary, avoid unnecessary surgery, etc. And I love helping all of you be able to directly help those people. And so I get a lot of fulfillment from that. And somebody had asked, will you ever treat clinically? That's a hard question. I have to say it depends. The most cliche healthcare answer. There's a lot of great PT jobs out there. I'm not saying like, oh my God, you should never treat clinically. That is not the case. I think treating clinically is so important and really crucial. Like, patients are out there who need you, right? And so there's plenty of good PT clinics out there. There's plenty of good jobs out there where you can have a good work-life balance and really get out of life what you want. And so for me, right now, I'm very content with where I'm at. And if something were to happen, and let's say I like lose a job, or if I can't do this anymore, like I know that I can always go back and be a clinically treating physical therapist. And so there's always that stability. That's really the answer to will I ever treat clinically? TBD, right? We'll have to see. Kind of depends. Most likely not. But anyway, those are the big questions that I had. If you guys have any more questions, put them in the comments below. Thank you for coming on today, guys. And I will see you next Sunday as usual. I have a guest coming on, Dr. Morgan Meese, talking about her experience as a new grad, opening up her practice, getting into business a little bit. So I'm excited to have her on, and that will be next Sunday, as usual, 11 a.m. Eastern in this Facebook group. So I will see you guys there. Have a great rest of your Sunday, and happy November.